spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers.
Welcome once again to Max Mike Movies, where we put the sin in cinema and the odd in podcast.
Oh, excuse me, I'm putting some sin in right now.
Oh, good. Whisk it in evenly. This week is our special executive platinum limited edition foil embossed extension of our Semi-Real People series. An extension so exclusive, so elite, that only our most loyal, intelligent, and well-manicured listeners even have access to it. Oh, you didn't have to sign up for it. We know who you are. Know where you are. We don't like that chair you just got, but we'll let it go. This time. Our episode today is a bit of a departure in that it's animated, and it's not technically about anyone terribly famous. I mean, the person is famous because they made this movie. 2007's Persepolis, which is an autobiographical animated film written and co-directed by the subject, the author, director, and political activist Marjane Satrapi, and it tells the story of her life growing up in Iran's turbulent history in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I am your two-dimensional black and white host, Max Levine, and over there, wearing a black turtleneck, smoking a Gaulois, and using a copy of Sartre's Being and Nothingness to prop up his iPhone, is that nabob of nihilism, Mike Luce.
We are all born astride a grave?
Well done.
Yeah, I'm so hip I have trouble seeing over my pelvis. So,
Yep.
But hey, before we get to all the fun stuff, don't we have some poll answers to hear?
We do. First of all, from Vladislav Raznik.
What was the question?
Oh, no, he was the Pole who wrote in. Aha!
No.
Thank you.
I will kill you.
Yes, fair enough.
And I have rescinded all your bumpy bucks.
Oh, come on!
All of them.
You can't do that. You'll crash the entire server. Bumpy bucks are now a cryptocurrency.
Oh dear gods, are our podcasts now available as NFTs?
Yes, they are. Every single one of them. Minimum bid $25 million.
Yeah, sure. Right.
Yeah. Last week's poll question: has a movie adapted from another source, be it book, video game, theme park ride, or breakfast cereal? I am still waiting for Cinnamon Toast Crunch, the movie.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Ever exceeded your expectations? If so, what movie? We had a few responses.
Yay.
From our most weaselly listener, the Wheeze, I think my top two are the original Ninja Turtles movie from 1990. It's still a great movie, and I think it holds the record for most successful indie film. I think that's right. And Into the Spider-Verse. That film, with its animation style and quick quips, is one of my top 5 of all time. Interesting. I gotta say, I agree with the Ninja Turtle one. When that came out, I wasn't a huge Ninja Turtle fan, but I thought the movie was just going to be awful. And I remember thinking, this is like a really fun Champions game. Superhero roleplay. That's what it reminded me of.
Well, I can only respond, go Ninja, go Ninja, go.
That was the second one. They did not attempt to Vanilla Ice us until the second movie.
Hey, without Vanilla Ice, what are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? I ask you.
And many people will tell you. From our most genetically connected member, Val, I will say I thought the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie exceeded expectations. The ride is cute and silly. I thought the movie would be kind of dopey. It was actually a fun adventure. I liked the second one, too. I was with you up until the second sentence. The last sentence. I agree. I thought that it was going to be a disaster. I thought it was going to be a joke. And it's a lot of fun, the first one.
Yeah, the first one. And then aren't there 4 of them or something?
I believe there are, in fact, 5.
I see.
Yeah.
Only you can prevent Forrest Gump.
And with our international contingent...
Ooh.
Vince, I am with Val with Pirates of the Caribbean movie, although I was really surprised how much I like Hellboy 1 and 2. No others were made after that as far as I'm concerned. That is fair.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Haunted Mansion, Tomorrowland, soon Jungle Cruise. Ugh.
Yeah. I enjoy the first Hellboy better than the second one. The second one's very pretty. I've recently started rereading Hellboy. I don't think they actually quite nail Hellboy, but I do enjoy them. I'm trying to think. I didn't see Haunted Mansion. I see
saw
Tomorrowland.
part of it. I believe I saw Tomorrowland. I remember nothing about it.
So you can't prove it. But what about you, Max? Has there ever been an adaptation that exceeded?
Absolutely, yeah. The Lord of the Rings. I was sure that was going to stink. I thought it was going to... I was like, no, there's no way you can do this.
Yeah.
No one's done it. I mean, that Ralph Bakshi thing, nice try, but it didn't really work. I thought it was impossible, and I remember walking out of Fellowship of the Ring going, oh my God, they did it. Yeah. They actually did it. Yeah. That's the big one for me. What about you?
Strangely, I had forgotten that as an option. It's
Really?
only, huge, and I've only read the damn thing 13 times, but there you go. Yeah, same thing. And there were things that he edited out that I wish he hadn't, but also understand why he did. Tom Bombadil being the biggest thing. I totally get why he left it out. And I know a lot of people don't like Tom Bombadil. I do, because to me, Tom Bombadil represents the only part of the old world that's still really left.
Narratively, I get it, though, because it grinds the story to a complete halt.
It does, and he's goofy. I mean, purposefully goofy. The Wees actually touched on something that didn't occur to me, because they're not really exactly adaptations. But most of the Marvel movies, I really did not think were going to work, and most of them I really like. Spider-Verse is outstanding.
True.
It is an amazing film. But when I first announced Thor, I'm like, no. They're gods. You can't do this. People will rebel. They'll be picketing, and they did it. And then it's like, okay, so it's not really magic. It's just aliens, because you're not going to do magic, Doctor Strange. Okay, this is going to be. Oh God, it's good.
Yeah.
General, and the only other one, and to be fair, I didn't read the book before I saw the movie, but the one that always stands out for me is Blade Runner. Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, I've read. I'm not a big Philip K. Dick fan. He's got great ideas, but his characters don't do anything for me. But Blade Runner, I think, far exceeds its original material. And interestingly, I have not read the book from this week's movie, but from what I understand, it's actually a pretty good adaptation. So... But we're probably going to poke at people next week, aren't we? Or this week.
Yep, this week. Basically, this is just sort of a variant on last week's question. Go the other way. Is there a book that you really like and would really like to see made into a movie, but no one's done it yet? And if so, which book?
I vote for Tower of Time. That's a real deeper. And hey... You folks may find out what we're talking about at some point if Max and I ever finish that little project, because, Max Mike Movies presents. Yeah, so you will tell you at the end of the show, Max will tell you at the end of the show how to contact us, as if you don't already know, to answer our poll question, and we'll remind you of it. But, hey, is there any trivia for Persepolis?
There might be. There's a little, not very much, but there's some.
But first, there's a pause. The show.
And now we're back. The budget for this was $7.3 million. The worldwide gross was over $22 million.
Cool.
So this was a success. It also was nominated for the Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film in 2007. It lost to one of your favorites, Ratatouille.
I mean...
It's a very different kind of movie.
Yeah, and I do like Ratatouille, but it's hard not to... They just give it to Disney films. It's kind of too bad. But.
Yeah. This will come as a great shock, but the government of the nation of the Republic of Iran was not very fond of this movie.
What?
Yes, I'll give you a minute to control your shock. And the government sent a letter to the French embassy in Tehran protesting the movie and pressured the organizers of the 2007 Bangkok Film Festival to drop it from the lineup, which they did.
Great.
Yeah. The voice of Marjane's mother is Catherine Deneuve.
Well, she's got a lot of Deneuve.
a major French actress who I'm sad to say you and I only know her from her Oil of Olay commercials.
She was in something, and it wasn't good, and I can't remember what it was. But
she was in a terrible horror movie at one point. Actually, I think she was in several. She voices Marjane's mother, and the woman who voices Marjane herself, Chiara Mastroianni, is her daughter.
Catherine Deneuve's or Marjane Satrapi?
Catherine Deneuve's daughter.
Oh, cool.
So they actually are mother and daughter. They also do the voices in the English version, too.
Oh, there was an English version?
There was. There was a dubbed version with all sorts of celebrity voices, and no one saw it.
Oh, okay, good. I saw it in French, so.
Yeah, so did you were supposed to see it in French.
Okay.
And there's a sequence, by the way, where Chiara Mastroianni as Marjane sings Eye of the Tiger. And she sings it really off-key because Marjane Satrapi herself demanded she do so. She said, I can't sing, you have to sing this off-key. And Chiara Mastroianni, among other things, is a trained singer, so she really had to work at singing it wrong.
It is one of the funnier sequences in the film.
The title Persepolis just literally means Persian city in Greek. The word is the Greek transliteration of the old Persian word Parsa, city of Persians. Parsa or Persepolis was an actual ancient city that existed in Persia around 550, 330 BC, and the ruins can still be seen in southern Iran. Those countries are one letter away from peace. The graphic novel was, but not the movie, has a sequel. Although, as Mike has told me, and I didn't know this until he told me before the show, the sequel, Persepolis, The Story of Her Return, actually ends where the movie ends. The movie is, in effect, the whole, both Persepolis and Persepolis 2.
Hey, quick backpedaling. Do you know why she chose that as the title?
I do not.
I went looking it up because I was confused, because I thought, oh, maybe it's the old name of Tehran, which seems to be where she's from, or at least the suburbs thereof.
That's where she grew up. She was born in another part of Iran.
Yeah, so it wasn't. So
yeah.
She chose the name, apparently, which is, as you said, originated from the ancient Greek term for that city in Iran, in order to convey the message that the current state of Iran comes from thousands of years of background, not just the recent hostile events.
Interesting.
So...
the graphic novel was also, as is the movie, the graphic novel is also in French, as Marjane Satrapi lived in France for a big chunk of her life.
Well, I had to look that up too, because one of my questions was, why are they speaking French? And
the French had a tremendous influence in Iran in the 20th century.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, it's important because it's mostly the elite or the more wealthy people not only spoke French regularly, but went to French schools like she did. So her position, which she doesn't shy away from, but doesn't exactly underline either, is that she's grew up in an upper middle class family and so had access to this. It also turns out that Quebec is a very popular place for Iranians to immigrate. And so a lot of them learn French so that they can go there. Apparently its usage has fallen somewhat out of favor and it's not as popular. And some terms from French have just been adopted into the language, which is either known as Farsi or Persian by Iranians.
Yeah.
Like, they'll correct you if you say Farsi, apparently, because I was reading something by an Iranian who said, yeah, it's back and forth. I've had other Iranians correct me and say, no, Persian. Which,
yeah.
You know, whatever.
But technically, it's, yeah.
Sorry, I am absconding with the trivia section.
That's okay. That's pretty much it.
Oh.
That's pretty much all I've got.
So, yeah, not a lot. I guess with an animated film, it's not as controversial to actually make the film, the making of it, because it's people drawing for hours and hours and hours. It's not like, there was a stuntman who broke his head or,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, shall you give us a story, Daddy?
Sure. Based on an autobiographical graphical novel, Persepolis is the story of Marjane Satrapi, a young girl growing up in Iran in the 70s. Through her eyes, we see the turbulent times in Tehran with the fall of the Shah, the Iran-Iraq War, and the rise in political power of religious extremism and the mullahs in her country. We follow her to Vienna, where she finds a new kind of freedom but ultimately misses home and returns. But with the increasingly difficult situation in Iran of the 90s, she finds she cannot stay and returns to Europe. That's pretty much it. It's basically her life from about age 6 to her early 20s.
The Lowdown. So, why did you choose this film? Or you hadn't seen it before? Oh, no, you had.
I had. I saw it when it came out, back in 2007. possible I waited till video in 2008. I can't remember. But I just wanted to try something different. I mean, we've been doing biopics about really famous people, mostly artists and such. And while Marjane Satrapi is an artist, most people don't know who she is. And while this enjoyed some popularity, it's not like I can't really say she's a major historical figure. And also, I just thought it was a really interesting idea to do an autobiography in animation. It's just, like Alison Bechdel doing Fun Home. And sometimes it really works, and I think it really works here. I haven't read the graphic novel, but I think the way the movie is done and the way she uses animation is really cool and is really evocative.
I agree. I thought that the animation and the images were not only beautiful, but they were amazingly effective, considering they're very simple. We're not talking Disney level here, which is fine, because I think that would just distract from the story, which is really more important.
Yeah, they don't go for hyper-realism either. I mean, it's fairly real, but there are sequences like when she's a little girl, she has a run-in with two women who are basically the forerunners of the Islamic religious police, who start, bugging her about she's wearing American sneakers, and she has like a Michael Jackson patch on her jacket. And they portray them as almost serpentine. They have no arms. They're just these black shapes with human faces that twist in these weird, inhuman ways. It makes them... and you're like, yeah, a kid would find this absolutely terrifying. And I could see how a kid would even see them that way.
I love that she had a jacket that said "Punk Lives" on it. It's like, do you have any idea what that means? No.
Yeah.
Probably
not really.
It didn't matter.
Well, I like when she's going down the street with all the black market, or trying, lipstick, cosmetic, Jekyll Maxon.
He was my favorite of the brothers, right up there with Tito.
Yes, and the guy what gets her, Iron Maiden. And all I could think was, Iron Maiden, excellent!
Yeah, bogus. Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought was interesting. And of course, we never, being where we are, in the countries that create some of this stuff, we have no idea how our popular culture, which we inflict on the rest of the world, other people see, or how they perceive it, or what it means to them. And in this case, all of this stuff pops up, like Iron Maiden. She actually ends up, when she gets to Vienna, she goes to it I have to call Vienna Thrash Metal Club, which was hilarious. Yeah. But she also has the Michael Jackson button, or Jekyll Maxon, depending on who you are. Punk Lives, all this stuff, and they like crave it. They all of this stuff from the West, which I guess represents freedom, because I don't even know if they have any idea what they're singing about, right?
Well, it also represents a massively powerful marketing engine. But it's not just that. To other people, it represents the worst parts of the West. It represents decadence. It represents capitalism unchecked. It represents godlessness. That's one of the reasons all of it was banned in Iran. And a lot of it still is. It's just very looked down upon. I mean, we are also really good at infiltrating other cultures with our stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, too, that things like sneakers I still don't quite get, because to me, the only thing that sneakers represent is comfortable shoes.
Yeah, but they got Nike and Adidas and all the big names were mostly American.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very difficult. In some ways, this is a really alien culture to me, to all of us. And I can't help noticing she glosses over a few things. I mean, this takes place in the 70s. There's no mention in 79 of the American hostages.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, we lived through. We were there. We weren't there, but
we were here, but we were here, there, not there, here.
Yeah.
But I actually understand why she didn't. And I actually really appreciate her depiction, because she's not trying to do a history of Iran, I think. What she's trying to do is give people a view of what the people are like in Iran, not the government, not the outward seeming face. There's actually another graphic novelist. He's not particularly well known either, which is sad. It was written by a French guy. Again, French. I don't know what it was with the French. Français. We should speak French to each other because apparently it's the language of graphic novel.
We're very cosmopolitan here at Max Mike Movies.
Maybe. His name is Guy Delisle, and I first came across his graphic novel Pyongyang. And what it's about is, as an animator, he was actually hired to go work in the capital of North Korea. And so he does a graphic novel of what it's like to live, as admittedly as an outsider, in the capital city of North Korea. And he's not talking about the government so much. What he's trying to do is show what it's like to be just a regular person. And it's very eye-opening because, according to his depiction, those people have almost no real idea of what the world is like outside their borders. Yeah. It's all fed to them. And there's parts of Satrapi's work here where she talks about how they start cutting things out and the communication is, here and gone. There's actually a follow-up. There was a big election a number of years, I think it was 2009, in Iran, where they were hoping to elect somebody who was far less conservative. And some people asked her if they could do like a Persepolis continued, and it's only about 4 pages long. I actually read it on the internet, and it was the same thing. They basically started cutting off modes of communication, so people, the only way they could get actual news was through Twitter and social media. But I think that's why she doesn't dwell on she doesn't dwell really on the attacks as much either. She does talk about it's like, well, we're being hit from everybody. And everybody.
Well, she talks a lot about the Iran-Iraq War because it was affecting her. We do see it through her eyes. That's the thing. It's not like she's not trying to embody the whole country. No. She's not trying to speak for all Iranians. She's saying, this was my experience. This is what happened. This is how it affected my family. This is when we ran from people. This is where we hid. This is how, my uncle, poor Uncle Anush, who was a real sweetie, but dangerously naive and ends up dying in prison.
Yeah. But I think that she's really trying to show us what the actual people are like as opposed to the government.
Yeah.
And I understand that because, of course, how many of us had any access to an actual Iranian person in the 70s and 80s? Strangely...
Well, we did.
We did, yeah. And in high school, there was at least one kid. I remember his name. I knew Ramin. Who was the other one?
Piruz.
Oh, Piruz was from Iran? Okay.
Yes, he was. In fact, I think he was like an aristocratic family.
Okay. Well, I'm guessing both of them were if they got out. Ramin was from Tehran. I mean, he was actually from Tehran. And all I knew about Ramin is he was a nice guy. Like, that's it. I didn't know that much about him, but and that he was from Iran, and it must have been really tough for him. But
I just knew he was way too cool. He was a nice guy, but it was like, nope, I can't hang out with him. He's too cool.
He was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I get that she left stuff out for the historical and the political stuff, because at least in the film, it looks like her family just, and the people that she knew just wanted to live their lives. They wanted freedoms like people mostly want. They wanted some form of democratic government. They talked about getting rid of the Shah and the ruling family and how that was going to be a good thing. And of course, or the previous royal family, and how that was going to be a good thing and how it turned out to be not a good thing. And
well, it might have been it was a good thing. The Shah was awful. And it's difficult for us in America to talk to about it because the Shah was our buddy.
Yeah.
We did everything we could to prop him up because, he was a barricade against communism. We supported a lot of really friggin' horrible people during the Cold War because we believe the counter to communism was fascism. It's like, well, if the guy's a fascist, he's going to want to fight the commies.
No comment on current situations here in this country.
yeah. And the Shah was terrible. And like overthrowing him, that was initially a really good thing. It was, but as one of her father or her uncle points out, when a government changes, people go a little crazy for a while. This is the same thing that happened in the French Revolution. You know what the period of time right after the Revolution was called? Do you remember that?
No, well, I wasn't there.
The Terror. That was when they were executing everybody for like, hey, you once smiled at an aristocrat, off with your head.
Yeah.
That was a really bad, violent time too. It didn't last as long. And the problem is when there is a vacuum, you never know what's going to fill it. And what filled it was the Ayatollah and the basically borderline theocracy.
Yeah,
and some of this.
She doesn't mention him directly either.
No, we don't hear about him, but we do see the religious police and the religious teachings that the veil stands for freedom.
Huh?
Yeah, I really like that. It's like, wait a minute, really? Then if it's for freedom, why are you required to wear it? Why will you get beaten up if you don't?
Well, she also brings up a very good feminist point, and something that I wish that we would pay more attention to in schools. She's in college at one point, and they're talking about the veil and how it has to be worn not only all the time, but certain ways. It has to cover so much.
It has to be longer. It has to cover more. They have to wear trousers that don't show their body shape.
Right. And she stands up and basically says, what about the guys? And I being a guy, I totally back the way that they represent the guys who are all like lazing on their chairs and just like spread-legged, quite honestly, and just, not caring about anything. And she's like, you can tell what kind of underwear they're wearing. And somehow they can wear stuff like that and we're not supposed to be tempted, but we wear anything that shows anything and we're tempting them, and it's such a double standard, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, and it happens here too. It
Sure.
happened as recently as this week. Did you hear about the yearbook in Florida?
I did. So refresh the memories of our listeners.
Oh, the students and the parents were surprised to get this copy of their yearbook where any of the girls who were showing too much of their shoulders or any cleavage at all had been photoshopped. They had added cloth over
Badly.
them. Very badly. That was annoying too. They not only did it, they did a crappy job of it. But they still have the boys in Speedos and walking around without shirts in casual pictures. But no, the women all were being told, no, you're supposed to cover up because your bodies are shameful and incite lustful thoughts. That is the idea behind the chador and the hijab, where it's because men are sinful and the sight of a woman will incite lustful thoughts, and therefore it is the woman's responsibility to keep covered, not the man's responsibility to maybe keep a check on those lustful thoughts there, Johnny.
Yeah. And I really appreciated her standing up in the film and saying that, because it is, I've seen it more and more, like a lot of the mistreatment of women and the misrepresentation of women and the general bad treatment of women could be taught when you're in kindergarten. Like, hey, here's an idea, guys. Don't think of women like that. And the pictures in this yearbook, I don't know if you saw the befores and afters. Yeah. You see racier stuff in the weekly supplements advertising underwear.
Yeah,
like literally the amount of cleavage, quote unquote, was nothing.
Underwear. You see worse than this in ads for insurance.
Yeah. Flo, we're going to have a talk. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that portion, and I totally agree with it. It's something that should be taught in families. Hey, before kids get to school, just and once they get older and, you have the sex talk, it's like, hey, you don't treat people like that. I don't care if you're a guy looking at another guy or a woman looking at another woman. You don't treat people like that. You don't make them conform to your problems.
Yes, you don't try to. Yeah, it's the whole victim blaming, and it's the whole like, it's all the responsibility of women, and there is something. It's back to the Bible, really, that there is inherently something sinful about women. And I'm in the words of Patton Oswalt, I'm glad you like a book, but come on.
I mean, anyway, if you want to bend that story, you could say, well, she was the one smart enough to actually try the apple.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get into a big, long religious discussion.
That's getting off. What I liked is she also doesn't shy away from the flaws in her own character. The reason she does that, one of the reasons she stands up in class is based on an incident that happened before where basically she's about to get in trouble with the religious police because she's wearing makeup and high heels, and to save herself, she throws this poor guy to the wolves.
Yeah.
When the police are about to talk to her or detain her, she's like, oh, sir, please help me. That man over there insulted me. And, he did kind of like look at her and go, oh, but that was it. And he ends up getting beaten up and arrested. And her grandmother tells her, I can't believe you were that selfish. That was a horrible thing to do. That's no integrity. You don't do that. You always have a choice. And that, I think, is one of the things that inspires her. The grandmother is a great character.
Oh, I'd say she's possibly the best character.
She is so cool.
She is cool. She has all the answers. She knows what's going on. And she's not... Like, the only time she admonishes her in the movie is a time when she really should, which, Max just said. But she's also obviously the person that Marjane looks up to most and goes to as her sort of moral compass. And the grandma's not without quote-unquote sin either, because later in the film, when Marjane has come back and she decides to get married, sadly it doesn't work out, her grandmother's like, oh yeah, that's fine. The first marriage is just practice for the second one. You're going to be fine.
I like that. I know that's great.
It was, because she's like, I didn't know either. I didn't know how... Basically, I didn't know how horrible guys could be, so now that I knew, I make sure to pick the right guy. So that's, don't worry about it.
And like the advice she gives her when she's going off to Europe, people are going to be jerks. They're going to hurt you. You don't hold on to it. Don't be petty or vengeful. The grandmother, everything that comes out of her mouth is gold, basically.
Yeah. I also was just like, when they toss off the fact that it's like, get a divorce. Like, I did not know that was so easy a thing to do in that area of the world or in that religion.
There are parts of, I can't remember if it's Persian or Arabic culture, where all you have to do, culturally, not legally, is say, I divorce you 3 times, and you are divorced.
I thought Beetlejuice showed up.
No, that's Bloody Mary.
Huh? I think we just referenced ourselves out of this show.
Yeah.
But it was interesting because, again, here's things, as an average American guy, I don't know anything about. And so seeing these people as people was probably the best part of this movie, because I don't know anything about Iranians. Iranians, I don't know any, and I don't know anything about the culture. I'm lucky enough to work where I do. I have a lot of folks that are of Chaldean descent, so I get to find out about stuff about Chaldean. Short story, great food. Because whenever they bring stuff to work, it's like, ooh, what's that? And so a lot of Middle Eastern folks, and, that's how you learn. I know little bits of a bunch of different languages because I've known people from different countries. I know how to say hello and how are you in Turkish because one of my coworkers is Turkish. So, hey, there you go. But probably the best thing about the film is basically wading through the history or textbook stuff that we think we know and getting to see the people. And what do? We want to go out to a party. Okay, we have to keep it quiet because we'll get in trouble, but we just want to go and dance and have fun.
We want to drink and smoke and have a good time. And so, but the thing that is different is the terror.
Yeah.
Someone's called the police, and now we all have to run away and hide. I mean, there's a sequence where they're running from the police because they were at a party with dancing, and actually because there was a party with men and women together, and they're chasing these guys across a rooftop, and one of them jumps to another building and doesn't make it.
Yep.
He dies because he was at a party.
I'm willing to believe is true. I don't know if it is, but it just... Why would she lie about that?
No, that is true. That's a real event.
Well, because we're sitting there, we are looking at a story. Let's be fair. There's likely to have been some editing going on because, I don't know about your life, but if I just told my life exactly as happened, boring. Yeah. And this film does read like a story as opposed to just an account. But there was nothing in it that felt convenient. Like, good thing this happened so we could feel this. No, it all... And it's so weirdly mixed with humor. Like, things are like, it's Tehran, it's being bombed, right? It's this... And then suddenly there's something that's really funny, which I was not expecting. Like, I didn't know there was going to be the amount of humor that it was. And it's not overdone. That's the weird part. Like, when it pops up, it's not this weird, abrasive, shocking...
It's not zany or out. It doesn't change the tone.
No. Like when she sings... she sings "Eye of the Tiger" of all things
in English.
Well, of course, because which I think is Journey. Really,
I think so.
It's the theme to one of the Rocky films. I don't remember which one. 4. Who cares? But it's like I just cringe when I hear that song anyway. But the song obviously meant something, and just suddenly having that makes you laugh. And I think part of that is on a very tiny scale. it's kind of like how they could laugh being in the circumstances that they were in. It's like sometimes you just need to. And I think the directors, she's one of them, were very smart. And it's like, this can't just be all dour and depressing. There was humor there. Let's make sure it's there.
I mean, there was some that just came out of nowhere that really surprised me. Like they go to a Godzilla movie. I'm like, well, they showed, and I'm thinking, oh, why wouldn't they? It's not Western culture. They don't have anything against Japan.
Well, importantly, did you know which Godzilla film it was?
Of course you knew. No, I don't know which one.
Oh, it's very simple. It's the first one. It has to be, because that's the one where Godzilla's actually killing people as opposed to Friend of All Children.
Wait, I thought it was Gamera was Friend of All Children.
Well, yeah, same thing.
I like the fact that her grandmother is doing the same thing that everyone's grandmother does in a movie theater, which is talking. Why is he just standing there? He's going to get stepped on. Why doesn't he move out of the way? Idiot. Grandma, shh. It's like, God.
She has a point.
What point?
How should I know? My head hurts. Yeah. I was surprised. I guess seeing the way the Western culture pops up, because it's literally whatever they can get. It's not. You talked about marketing earlier. Well, it's not like Elektra Records is like opening stores there, and there's One Direction or something. It's literally whatever can get smuggled in.
Yeah. I like how they're smuggling in like the Bee Gees. And then I like her friend says the Bee Gees are for wimps.
No, ABBA's for wimps.
Oh, no, she says the Bee Gees are for wimps.
Somebody shows the Bee Gees, and then they show ABBA, and it's like, no, ABBA's for wimps. And it's like, you realize it's basically the same thing.
It's like, oh yeah, I see. Bee Gees are hardcore. ABBA is for wimps. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Again, some of the stuff with the animation, getting back to that, one of the parts I really like is how they animate her going through puberty.
I mean, that's something like my nose got too big, and then one
and
leg was too long.
It's literally like her nose goes out here, and her chest overdevelops, and her butt gets to, so then that changed my center of gravity. She's like falling over. It's like, it's literally, her entire body is changing in the space of 20 seconds. It's really funny and really painful, because it's like, yes, that is how you feel when your body is changing like that. That was, I think, a really good depiction of it.
I agree. It was like, how do you make this awkwardness feel the way you felt when you were that age? And the way she's talking, when she finally says the part is like, and then my butt grew, which reset my center of gravity. And you're waiting for this homunculus, and it's just her. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's how she looks like this, but she feels like this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's how they did it in the comic or not, but there's sometimes when you look at animation, and this is where animation really gets the short shrift in a lot of, well, I can't even say Western culture. I'm going to have to say American culture, because in Europe, they actually have animation that doesn't just do kid stuff. But animation can do anything. And there are things you can do with animation and comics you can't do with any other medium. And that section is a perfect example. Thanks for bringing it up. Because how else would you depict that in a live-action film? Like, would it be makeup or something? And it would
or
work?
CG. It would look ridiculous. But it's because it's animated, you kind of expect it. It fits.
Yeah.
And it fits with the sort of slightly surreal aspects we've seen. Like when Marjane's neighborhood has been bombed, and one of the buildings with people she knew has been destroyed. And at one point, and it's very disturbing, she looks in the rubble, she sees a hand.
Yeah.
And suddenly all the background around her becomes black, and she's got her hands up by her face, and for a second she looks just like the figure in Munch's The Scream.
Somehow I didn't catch that.
It's not overdone. It's actually pretty subtle. The first time I didn't catch it, but I thought that's really good, because it's not shoved in your face.
There was another visual thing that I picked up. I don't know that it's real, but it does point to a French children's book. So early on, when she's younger, there's suddenly an alarm bell when she's in class.
Yeah.
And the teacher, who is wearing basically the nun's outfit, which,
the chador, yeah.
Yeah. She starts hustling the kids out into a nice solid line. I'm like, oh my God, it's just like Madeline. Do you remember that book, Madeline?
Yep.
which I believe was originally French. The author was Bemelman, but all the little girls in a line and stuff, except for Madeline.
Two straight lines.
That's right. Two straight lines. And again, I don't know if that's actually referenced, but it could be. But I thought that was really cool.
I hadn't thought of that. But that visually, that looks just like it. Yep, the tall, and in fact, Miss Clavel in the book in Madeline is a nun.
Yeah, and has no feet either.
No, also has no feet. One of the other things I thought the animation did a really nice job. It's a later segment, but it's when she's come back to Iran, and she is suffering from depression, and they are giving her 1980s depression antidepressants.
Yeah,
which were not the best, shall we say.
Oh, they were effective. You didn't feel depressed anymore. The problem is you didn't feel much of anything.
Yeah, you basically walked around in a fog. What was it, lithium or dexamethasone? No, that was an upper.
I thought it was Flintstones chewables.
Might have been Flintstones chewable morphine, I'm not sure.
Especially Barney.
But the way it's depicted with her just sort of like sitting on the couch and then in her head floating aimlessly in this gray mass, I thought that was a really uncomfortable and really good visual depiction of depression and medication. And I like that what snaps her out of it is she has this vision of God, who she's seen before, who's actually, even as a child, is a fairly reasonable God.
Yeah.
He's not... he's not a child's God. He's actually quite like, no, just do what you have to do. Try to be decent to people. Don't when she's picking on this kid. She and her friends are going after this kid whose father may have been part of the Shah's secret police, which is very uncomfortable because they're like going after him. They want to tear out his eyes.
Yeah, kids go evil really quickly.
Yeah, they do.
But I actually like the fact that she shows that because it also is not her trying to make herself out to be blameless in things.
She gets caught up in it, and the God in her vision says, it's not his fault. It's not what his father did has nothing to do with him. You can't persecute him like that.
I was trying to figure out which version of God that was supposed to be.
I'm assuming it's Allah.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's certainly not the one you generally hear depicted. And, of course, depicting him is a big no-no.
Yeah, so that, notice she never says it's Allah. It's not a depiction of Allah, so she's not, this isn't a Charlie Hebdo situation.
Well, except that she does say she wants to be a prophet, and that's where she seems to be getting her information from, so it's more than a little implied.
Yep, but after her uncle dies, she doesn't want to talk to God anymore, and he returns in this montage of her depression along with Karl Marx, which is like, okay, that's an interesting combination. And I like that Marx is winking at God and going, so you just have to do what you have to do. And God's like, yes, you have to do what you have to do. It's like, yes, listen to your Uncle Carl. Go ahead.
Carl! Yeah.
It's a really strange depiction, but that's sort of what snaps her out of it. That's when she starts doing the Eye of the Tiger montage and pulling herself back together.
Well, of course, if I understand correctly, and hey, if people want to write and tell me otherwise, I believe in militant Islam, you're not supposed to depict anything. That's why it's like no people, no animals. It's just supposed to be abstract, geometric, which is why you have some of that amazing artwork on mosques and stuff, but it doesn't have any figures in it.
It's very abstract.
Yeah. So this whole idea of her doing a comic in all, never mind having a representation, which is pretty obviously supposed to be God, in it, is pretty courageous.
I was reading about whether she could ever go back to Iran.
Oh, she could go back.
But no, she says, I don't know. I'm not going back because I honestly don't know what would happen. It's not like there's a rule book.
Right.
It's like if someone decided they really didn't like it, she could get locked up for the rest of her life.
Well, that's what I'm saying. She could go back. I don't know that she could come back out again.
Yeah.
And at least in the film, she made a promise to her mother that she would never come back, which is very sad.
That was very touching. Her mother said, I forbid you to come back. Mm. And it's not at all. And her parents are great, too. They're also very human, very fallible. But the love they have for her is so absolute and unconditional and believable. It's so touching.
Yeah. Do you want to get to our questions? Because we still have our questions.
Yeah, let's have our questions. Answer me these questions 3. Yeah, the other side, you see.
What do we know about Marjane from this movie?
Pretty much quite a bit. Certainly more than I did going into this movie the first time.
Which could be 0?
Yeah, I basically learned that's again why this is such a different biopic. This is a biopic where I had not heard of this person before this movie.
Yeah,
that the autobiography created her in my mind.
This is one of those books that I've been meaning to read for a long time. You know, like Mouse, which if you haven't read Mouse, an amazingly effective depiction. It's literally the cartoonist Art Spiegelman doing interviews with his father who had been in Auschwitz.
Yeah.
And he makes it into literally a cat and mouse comic, which is very simply drawn and exceedingly effective.
And the strange thing is, it's not impossible to read. It's really hard. There's a lot of Holocaust depictions that are just so painful. This is just so matter of fact.
Yeah.
It's incredibly effective. It's genius. It's one of the greatest graphic novels I've ever seen.
Yeah, so if you're looking for stuff to read, this, Persepolis, which is in 2 volumes, usually sold, I think, together as a set, or Mouse, highly recommend. But yeah, you know, she's telling it. To be fair, that could be clouded, but we know a lot about a person, even if we don't know a lot of facts, which is fine.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need to know what year she was born. We don't need to know what her first date was. You know,
and it doesn't matter even how accurate it all is. It still paints a real picture of a real person.
Well, that's the second question. How accurate is the depiction? I'm going to have to go with 100%.
Well, that's the thing about autobiographies.
Yeah.
You know, it's the most subjective. It's one of the most subjective forms of expression. And you have to accept the author as reliable to a degree. But because it's an autobiography, you know it's completely colored by their experience. But it's supposed to be. That's the idea of an autobiography.
I would guess... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go no. I was
going to say, I'm going to guess that mostly that what we don't know from the depiction is through leaving it out. Mm-hmm. Right? Because there's some stuff I wouldn't want to see about my own life up somewhere. It's like, yeah, not my best moment. But she doesn't come across as infallible. She doesn't come across anywhere near perfect. She not only makes mistakes, but that scene with her grandmother is a real, like, we can tell. It's like, oh, wow,
you done screwed up.
Well, but it's like with grandma, there's actually an X on your report card with grandma. Yeah. Like, that's got to have been really, really hard.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to guess because the only source we have is her, but it feels very accurate. And do we feel we get to know the subject better after having watched this? Yes.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably one of those uncomfortable ones where she probably gets people coming up to her on the street going, I feel like I know you.
Yeah, I'm inside you now.
You're walking the night in my skin. Yes.
Yeah, and that's true of any kind of mass medium. Like anybody we encounter in a mass medium, we feel like we know them when in fact we know nothing about them, having seen them in a movie or even this.
But when you see something like this, it's like, well, you're telling us all about yourself, so now we know everything about you.
Yeah, and we're
spoiler. No, we don't.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I think we learn. I think she shows us a lot. I think it's a very personal and it's a very brave piece of work because she does show it, warts and all.
Yeah, and it's still being banned places. Even in this country, there's plenty of schools. And this is the weird part. Now, I haven't seen the graphic novel, so I don't know if it's that much different than the film. But apparently, the reasons that school districts and stuff are getting flack from parents are because of the sexual situations.
Because I don't know if she does have several. Sexual.
One of them, they literally come out of the bushes. Like, you don't see anything.
I don't know how graphic. If it's anything like it is in the movie, it's not graphic at all. I mean, there's no nudity. It's not even really that suggestive.
The first guy she falls in love with, it's so sad and funny. It's like the next morning he comes out of the bushes, he's like, hey, thanks for helping me find out I'm gay. See ya.
Wow. I love that he's hugging her going, thank you so much. And she's like with this forced grin, you're welcome.
Yeah. And then the second guy she falls
I
in
like
love
how when her second boyfriend Marcus, how we see him, he's drawn completely differently before he breaks up with her, or she catches him cheating, and then she suddenly retells all the memories, and he's this disgusting, grotesque-looking creature picking his nose, and it's really well done.
Well, and the thing that's great is that both depictions are obviously overblown, just in different ways.
Yeah, you know that the truth is somewhere in between.
Yeah.
He wasn't this perfect angel before either.
No. I've pretty much made it through my notes. How about you?
Yeah, nope, I've got them all.
Well, then we're going to have to go to that portion. Yeah, the roundup, but yes.
Yeah.
The roundup.
So, Mike, what do you think of this movie?
I always try to beat you. I don't know why. It's not a competition.
I don't either.
In general, I liked it a lot. I think she's a good storyteller. Yes, it's her own story, but if I had to sit down and tell my autobiography, I don't know how that would come out. How about you? Would you be able to do that?
Oh, I don't think so. It would be too uncomfortable, honestly.
Yeah.
I don't think I have the guts that she does to just take those parts and put them up there for everyone to see.
Yeah. The animation's really very simplistic, and it works great. I was never once thinking, oh, if this was only more realistic or smoother or 3D or any of that. It is exactly what it needs to be.
Even the fact that it's 99% of it's in black and white, only the present is in color.
Yeah.
Everything else is in black and white, and that's fine. That works really well.
The only thing I will say, and it's also, to be fair, for what it's depicting, I was expecting it to be a lot more depressing than it was, and thankfully it was not as hard to watch as I was worried it was going to be, which is not the film's problem, it's mine. The ending is very abrupt. Like, it very quickly ends, and I didn't understand, because of her actions in the beginning of the film, I misinterpreted it, because she's just in the airport in Orly, right, in France.
Yeah.
I thought she would, because she doesn't leave the airport. She's just sitting there.
Right.
My thought was she was, and they show her looking at a flight to Tehran.
Right. You thought that she was going back. Yeah, I thought so too. It does come across that way. And at the end you realize, no, she's just girding herself. She has come to France and she's girding herself to leave the airport and enter this new world.
Yeah. And so that part was confusing to me. And I think that honestly, the color portions of the film could have been clearer. And also,
I can see that.
The film ending as quickly as it does. And I don't mind having an ending where she doesn't know what's going to happen, because she didn't know what was going to happen. She's basically like, I can't go back to Iran ever again. I'm going to go and live in France and see how that goes. And apparently, at least partially, it went well. She's still an activist and stuff. But I think it's well worth seeing. It's only an hour and a half, which again, she doesn't try to drag things out.
Yep.
It tells you things about the people without dwelling on the textbook or political stuff. So yeah, I thought it was actually pretty good. How about you?
I liked it. I think it's really well done. I think it's a very effective. I think it's a really interesting window into a world I know very little about, and a culture that is very different and both sometimes confusing and threatening.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see them as people. I really like it. Again, I agree. The bracketing mechanism's a little awkward, and the ending is a little abrupt. And it does kind of leave you wondering what happens next, which is good, but we aren't told.
Yeah.
And
I also appreciate being educated. Because I know I was, right? But it was done in a way, it's just like, we're not going to make you, list things or dates. Come meet the people. This is what we're really like. That I liked. And it's like, okay, now I know a little bit more about Iranian people.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good. I'm glad I saw it again.
Cool. Well, if you would be so kind, I'd love it if you would repeat our poll question and tell us how people can answer us.
Sure. So, if you were going to have Bumpy beaten to death with Mike, or Mike beaten to death with Bumpy, which would you?
That's
I'm sorry.
Not the question.
Oh, right, that's next week. Sorry. Basically, sort of a counterpoint to last week's question: is there a book that you really like that you would love to see made into a movie that has not been made into a movie? And what is it? And you can tell us your answer at any of a number of places, most of which you probably already know. You can leave a comment on our website at maxmikemovies.com, where we have the complete catalog of our back references and the eventual home of the Bumpy Hut catalog.
And hey,
order
real quick,
things with your.
Do you want to mention the little update to the website that's happened?
Oh, yes. You now can, if you leave a comment, you can check a box, and you will be notified who replies to your comment.
Cool.
Yeah, you can be emailed that way. You can also find us, of course, on the medias of socialness, Facebook and Twitter under Max Mike Movies. That you can leave us comments that way, at least on Facebook. I guess you can leave it on Twitter for all 6 of our followers to read. You think I'm exaggerating. You can find us on the podcast app of your choice or on Spotify, although I don't think you can answer the question that way. Or you can, of course, email us at maxmikemovies.com, or you can call Mike on his home phone, which I don't know.
Bumpy,
which is,
go poop in his
by
salad.
the way, listed in large flashing numbers on our website. As
Poop, Bumpy, poop!
Now. So, what's our next movie, Michael?
Well, next week we are, in fact, finally bringing this series to a close. Even though we said we were last week, but we didn't, because actually, we might even come back to this one. And hey, there's another comment you can leave. Did you like the semi-real people? Because there's lots more to choose from.
Oh, tons of them. You want to hear more biopics, have another series, let us know.
Yeah. I would like to go in a different direction. I'd like to go to something a little lighter, a little fluffier, a little happier, a little bit more musical.
Nice. Sure.
I thought we would go to a film that's just, I don't know, it's kind of heartwarming and just fun.
I think you're lying.
Well, I mean, it's true from a certain point of view.
Yes, Obi-Wan, what is it?
I lied. Next week, we're going to be finishing up this series with the Ed Harris vehicle, Pollock. A film about
the
Kevin
story
Pollak.
about a famous kind of fish.
No. About the comedian Kevin Pollak, who starred in films such as Usual Suspects and, well, you know.
And Willow.
And Willow, yes. Too many to name here. No. It is about the painter Jackson Pollock, and what a fun, upbeat, happy song and dance guy that he was. And so if you would like to come and sing and dance and paint your way into our hearts next week, please join us, won't you?
Welcome to Sing Along with the Jackson Pollock Show. This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.